Hey folks, it's Keith Beardsley, a Tory 01, back with another blog looking at what's going on in federal politics. So yesterday was an interesting one, and we can really see Trudeau's, I'm just going to call it Trudeau's desperation tour continues. Clearly a very desperate man. He's getting frantic. He's looking for any silly little thing to try and promote himself, none of which is working because they came out with an absolutely god-awful budget. They couldn't even buy off the generation that you would normally think might vote for him. So his desperation tour continues. And yesterday he was on Jordan Peterson. Have you ever heard of him? How many Canadians have? Really, most of us don't pay attention to that stuff. The moment for his day. This was his whole thing for the day. That's desperation. That's real desperation. Now, one of the things that you gotta, you just know is going to happen when he says something like that, right on cue. Toronto Star, CBC, highlight the story. And of all the stupidity, even the CTV ran with the story. So here they are, three major outlets. Geez, I wonder how many of them get money from the government. But anyways, three major outlets running on a silly story like this. They'll back this guy. You just watch. Now, one of the things that Trudeau did wrong, and he should know better, at least his staff should, you never mention your opponent by name. You never do. Why? Because every time you open your mouth and you talk about somebody and you identify them, and they're your opponent, you're giving them credibility. So the more Trudeau hammers Pierre Poilievre, the more credibility he's giving to him. Unwritten rule of politics. Don't talk about your opponent. Now we do know, and I know this from my own experience, many, many years running attack teams and coming up with the types of lines that Trudeau's trying to use. I used to write a lot of that stuff. We do know that the media will shift. All right. I remember a former director of communications for Joe Clark when I was working with him, a man by the name of Bill Rogers, very good reporter at one point, an anchor desk here in Ottawa. And he used to always say, reporters want a horse race. They want to try and make it interesting. They will build somebody up and build them up and build them up. And when they think they've got a little bit too big, they then spend the rest of the time knocking them down. And at that point in time, we were looking at the rise of Stockwell Day, who had just taken over as leader. And Stockwell was way up in the polls. And Bill kept saying to me, just watch. They're going to turn on him, and they're going to tear him apart. And did they ever? Pierre's in for the same dose of medicine. The media will turn on him. The media that so far has been turned on Trudeau will eventually turn on Pierre. So Pierre has to really tighten up what he does. He's got to make sure that anything he does, he has his speaking point ready. And even yesterday, the response from the Conservatives was way too long. It was a very long paragraph response. Why? You want to shut the story down? Just come out and say something like, the only endorsement I seek is that of Canadians. End of story. It's going to get interesting in the days ahead because, like I said, the reporters like a horse race. And a lot of those reporters owe their jobs to money coming from the government. Think of that one, folks. Keith Beardsley, a Tory 01, wishing you a great day.